Hi, and welcome to If These Heels Could Talk. I'm JoyGenea with Solutions by JoyGenea.
And I'm Michelle with Bad Cat Digital, and we have a surprise topic for JoyGenea today. Yay! So I got a voice message, one of those audio messages, which was awesome. I've never done that before. I've never sent those before. It's like you send a text message, but it's like your voice recording. Yeah. I've accidentally hit it, but I've never actually intentionally sent it. Usually I just send people.
I have a few subcontractors that do that all the time.
Audio clips of
me.
Of the inside of my pocket.
Oh, funny. Oh, that was
and
nice
people murmuring in the background. But this one was actually intentional, and it was sent to be my coach, actually.
Nice.
And she was talking about something else, but here's the question that she posed in the podcast or in the message that I thought, what haven't you learned yet?
Oh, that's interesting.
What haven't you learned yet? And it was thrown out in the audio message. They were just talking about a book or I don't know, whatever. But the point is, it was thrown into this. It wasn't the point of it, but it grabbed my brain. And I was walking into our recording and I thought, ooh. So JoyGenea, what haven't you learned yet?
Is it what haven't I learned? Okay, so I took that and went three ways.
Okay.
What haven't I learned? How many times have I run into that wall and I'm not catching on? Yeah. That wasn't actually the first one. That one came about third. And then the first one was, oh my gosh, the list of things that I had, I don't know, somewhere
like learning Portuguese or something.
Right. Those there was that I haven't learned this or this or this yet. And then it was interesting. And then the last item I thought about, or the list that's kind of out there, is what are those things that I haven't learned yet because I haven't lived them yet? So I can't, they're ahead of us in life, claiming Social Security, you know what I mean? Filing for Medicare, but just those types of things.
Or even things like something I haven't learned yet is how to grieve a lost parent.
Right. That's just it.
And I don't know how to do that. Right. It's not something you can prepare for. Or
you can pretend you're going to prepare for it.
Yeah, but
no.
You can prepare for the practicalities of it.
Yes.
And you can, think that you're, but
the rest of it, it's a lived
thing. Yeah. And there are some things I hope I never learn.
So I want to know about you. So what came to mind when you first thought?
All three of those things came to mind for me too, because there was the more mundane, I suppose it would be great to learn the ukulele, whatever. It doesn't even matter what it is, but more skill based.
Yes.
That would be cool.
You want to know the first thing that came to mind for me? Okay. I've always wanted to know how to rebuild and build small engines.
Oh my gosh, I was thinking exactly the same thing, because because you rode your motorcycle in today, and it's why I don't ride a motorcycle, because I think they'd kind of be a little expensive to fix, and I'd want to be able to do some of the maintenance and stuff myself. Yes. And I don't know how to do it, so
I know, and they're small engines, so it's knowable. And I have some.
YouTube, I'm sure I could muddle my way through, but it's kind of one of those things. I would really like to. Small engines is something I would like to learn. My sewing machine is run by a small engine. I'm just saying.
I'm betting you and that small engine have been torn apart a couple times.
Me and that small engine have had our words.
Yeah. So. Sometimes when just adding oil isn't enough.
Yeah, well, that's my only move. I have oil and I have that canned air stuff to clean the lint out. Those are my moves.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, those are my moves.
What else would come to mind? Because then I also thought of business.
Because that's the mundanity of it. I think that there are some things that I wish I could learn. Oh. I haven't learned yet. I'm going to say this, and I have an explanation for it. I have not learned how to be comfortable with abundance.
Oh, I do know what you're talking about.
Because I've lived in scarcity of time and resources and stuff for so long. Mm-hmm. For so long. In one way or another, my whole life has been in scarcity of something. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to trust abundance.
Yeah.
It's hard to feel safe. It's hard to feel there isn't another shoe that's about to drop around the corner. It's hard to feel stable.
So you're kind of actually in the process of learning now. That's what I'm kind of.
I don't know. I don't know if I am or not.
I have awareness.
I have awareness.
You have awareness, so that already starts you.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm because of course I don't trust it, so I don't think it's going to last. So therefore, even if I acknowledge that I'm learning it,
You're still fighting it.
I'm fighting learning it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are things that we,
because that would
we stop
require
ourselves
letting
from
go
learning.
of control.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it fundamentally usually
Okay,
comes down to
fine.
a few
Thank
things.
you so much. Oh,
For all of us, that's why you get what prevents us from a variety of things: control and fear.
Well, I'm doing this thing later today, called a brain trust, where people are kind of like one person comes to a panel of people who have experience in the thing that they want, and it's kind of this organized thing. And I'm on the panel as an experienced entrepreneur, and for yeah. Well, I'm fighting some what's it, imposter syndrome with this. But the point is, though, that I am on this panel, and I read the person's kind of questions and topics early on.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh gosh, I remember being there. And that's, I think, the point of the panel, right? Yeah. I remember being there. I remember being there. And this person is trying to learn something that I've, learned in a difficult way. And it's really a cool thing. But I also, the things that I learned so viscerally.
Oh yeah.
Like so painfully. And sometimes, because one of the biggest things is that perfection is so often our biggest enemy, that we think working toward being perfect or working toward is the thing we should be doing. But in reality, a lot of times it stops us from moving.
Yes.
And it stops any sort of forward progress.
It's an impediment.
Yeah. It becomes a wall instead of, know. And so how do you explain that to somebody?
You just like you did.
But at the same time, they still have to learn it.
Right.
Hearing it over and over and over again, or
just like
they still have to learn it.
We're going to tell you things. I want to just tell you, people are going to tell you things so many times. It's ridiculous. And then not going to hear any of them until all of a sudden you
hear them.
Right. Or you
feel them deep in your
you'll be
gut.
I remember somebody telling me this is going to hurt.
And boy, I wish I had listened and I could have seen it coming. But the point is that you never will.
Yes. And letting go of that.
Letting go of that expectation.
Yes. And it's a false, I'll just point it out right now. That's a false expectation. In business, you can never know everything that's going to come around the corner.
Absolutely.
You cannot.
You cannot.
I mean, look at waiting
pandemic.
Right. That's a
who would have thought?
Right. That's just it. That was on a very small amount of people had a binder for that.
The largest factor of every business owner in the last 3 years has been that.
Yes.
And nobody was ready for it.
No. And we've all just rolled with it and built from it and
and done our best with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's been its own challenge. Oh, that's an interesting thing. You're right. We cannot learn for other people.
No, we can't. And we can't. So there's this whole concept of how do we help other people? How do we prevent other people from making the same mistakes we make? We can't.
No.
And I don't think it's just a fallacy in business. I think it's a fallacy in parenthood too, because it's something that I watch.
As observers of the parenting world.
And somebody who just dipped a toe in with a teenager this last year, very much a toe. There is no way to teach somebody how to learn.
No.
There's no way to prevent.
No.
You just have to let it happen and be there.
And cheer it on.
Oh my gosh. And it's painful to watch.
It's
painful to watch.
I admire parents so much. I admire the people that stepped up to be parents and are participating in that, because it is really, I believe, geared you for business on levels you don't even realize. You have additional skills.
Well, I think about just leadership in general, because parenting is a kind of leadership.
Oh, absolutely.
It's, I think, a really intense emotional kind, but it is a kind of leadership. Yes. And I think about leadership in general. I think about some of the young leaders we have on the team and the lessons that they're learning now about, how sometimes if your team member gets mad at you, they can take things out of context and use them against you.
Oh, absolutely.
Or how you have to take responsibility for something, really take responsibility for something that you didn't do.
Yeah.
Or did not do.
Yeah.
But it's still on your back.
Yep.
And about how all of these kinds of things that young leaders learn, they're learning, and it's really hard to watch, because we tried to, you try to set people up to succeed, not to fail. You want people who can learn, because I think this could be an interesting podcast too.
Oh, yeah.
The idea of qualities of a leader, and I think the ability to learn is one of them.
Oh, 100. Perfectionists don't make great leaders.
No. Oh my
Let's
gosh.
just be honest. Control
for
freaks
themselves
don't
or
make-
anybody.
No. They don't motivate very well. And they don't understand the outcomes.
Right.
Because they're like, but I did all the things. I checked all the boxes. You didn't enroll the people. You didn't hear the people in the process.
Right.
You didn't adapt and adjust as necessary due to you stuck to the checklist.
Well, and the thing is, people who follow a checklist will only ever be middle management type leaders.
Yes.
Because leaders create the checklist.
Yes. Yeah.
Leaders make the process. Leaders,
Yeah.
the person on the team who's leading the team isn't necessarily the person who's quote unquote managing the team. The person who is accountable for and who is creating that process along the way, who is thinking creatively and learning, that's the leader of the team.
Yes.
Even if they're not the named leader of the team.
But it is. See, okay, so that's one of the gifts.
Yeah.
Of the fact that the neurodiverse community, the one I'm kind of with and hanging out with, we have to always be adapting and learning. Yeah. Because it's quicksand under everything's moving, changing. Each situation is different. So we're pulling out our deck of tricks.
Your deck of tricks, your adaptation tricks.
Okay, are we doing this or this in this situation?
I think it's amazing because it's almost like it teaches you to be a chameleon in all of these situations and scenarios. You
can't be a perfectionist in a world where you can't spell anything perfect. Most things not perfect.
Yeah.
That gets squashed. Having that type of control over some basic things that other people can have, that helped remove that from my repertoire. So now I'm
the perfection funny bone is gone.
It's more can I just get a C on this? I have been trained to can I make it under the radar? Yeah. And can I get this
not
done?
The training that I got.
That's what I mean. And I think you got more stress at times.
Well, I think it creates.
It's a different stress.
It's a different stress.
I can't relate to it because
it's not
I'm
more or less. I don't know that it's more or less. Fair. I think it's a different.
I watch it and I'm she's getting that perfectionist thing. Yeah. She wants it to be all perfect. I'm I wish I could give her some of my neurodiversity shit. And sometimes I wish you could share some of your perfectionism with me, so I'd step it up just a little bit or hit a timeline.
I think it's one of those things that it's we all have kind of challenges and gifts, and at times some of our challenges are more rewarded and some of our gifts are more rewarded, and there are scenarios and situations we can set ourselves up in. But I think this concept of what haven't I learned yet, it's really an interesting idea. It's an interesting question because there are a lot of different ways you can take it, but at the same time it's what am I fighting against learning versus what just hasn't happened yet? What opportunities to learn have not come my way? Because that's what we really look at. I mean, when we are in our higher selves, not necessarily in the moment. Right. In the moment, I am screaming at the cars in front of me to move their butts. But later on, I can recognize it as an opportunity for some patience and empathy and compassion. In the moment, not so much.
In the moment, you're no.
But maybe that's something that, I have learning to do. Mm-hmm. And it's a really interesting idea, that question of what haven't I learned yet? And I just never thought about it that way.
I'm going to keep that. That's going to roll around for a while.
I think,
Thanks for bringing that to the table. And I hope everybody out there is thinking the same thing. What haven't I learned? Honestly, I'm all about the make a list of 5 things. Well, and or share with somebody or have this conversation. It's what really comes to mind.
It's one of the things that I admire the most about you is how fearless you are. I'm
glad you see it that way.
True. It's true. It is again. It's that difference, right? That risk taking and that outside. You have you'll get in your head to learn the ukulele and you'll just pick one up. Right. Watch couple of YouTube videos. Maybe take a class. Okay, and I will let that thought pass through
hundreds of times
and not do anything about it because it's well, I might not like it, or that's a lot of money, or what if it's the time I tried to learn this and it doesn't work out, and and it just and I get really and all of a sudden you get really stymied by it, especially if you're not really good at it right away.
Which you're never
going to
Let's help you out. You're never. There's an elite group. You're not probably it.
Yeah. No.
I'll just help you out.
I do not have any secret musical ability.
Right.
And so it's just, but I really admire how fearless you are that way, especially in learning new things. So
I love your competitiveness.
Ooh.
I do.
That's the first time anybody's ever said that to me.
Oh yeah.
Usually they say, you're so competitive.
Oh no.
Like I would hate to play Monopoly with you.
No, I admire it. And when it comes to learning, it's helpful because you stretch, you assess the room and you go, who am I challenged by here? Who am I going to be competing with? Like like there's a strategy that automatically happens. I'm like, oh, she good. I'm just trying to make friends. I'm over here like the golden retriever lab. Hi everybody, let's be friends. And I love that. I do. I really.
And I'm like, who can help?
Yep. And it was like ability to cheat. It works. It works.
All right. Well, that's it for us here at If These Seals Could Talk. I think it's a really interesting question. What haven't I learned yet? And I would encourage you to ask it of yourself. And hopefully this conversation has brought about some different ways for you to think about the question.